and blowout sales
I
or
do too.
whatever, so,
I do
yeah,
also,
yeah. Here's another theory about
Well,
clamps.
let's get started
Okay,
here.
yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I
so-
just have one question.
Sure.
And when you said there's a lot of moisture, you know, are you talking about the glue?
Yes.
Adding the moisture?
Yeah, glue has about 50% water in it. And so you want to let that water absorb into the wood and dissipate or evaporate or whatever, and let the little microscopic balls in the glue bond together. Yeah,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Okay.
They recommend 24 hours, by the way.
For curing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no stress
Yeah.
on it after 24 hours. Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to say hello, everyone. I'm Kevin from Cucamonga Woodworking. This is Ed Rizzardi and Dennis Hayes over here, and this is our second, basically asking questions type of a workshop for whatever you guys want to talk about. And quick disclaimer, which we're talking about stuff. These are their opinions. There's other. Like you said, what is it? There's you ask 4 woodworkers how to do something, you get about
19 different
19
answers.
different ways to do it.
Yeah.
So these are their opinions from doing it for 40 years each. So and they're making themselves available for questions. Hi Tom, I think we chatted or something there. We got some other people here that showed up recently, Les and Toby. How are you doing, everybody? And like I said, there's that disclaimer there. What we're going to talk about a little bit is we'll talk about the spline joints later.
Okay.
How about we can talk about it.
Well,
I guess see if there's any more questions right now, right?
well, just a little preamble. At the last meeting, we were talking about dominoes, and the question was asked, well, what can you do instead of a domino? And we talked about, a splines would be a totally cool alternative. It's quick and dirty, and that which I like. I don't like to fuss. You could do mortise and tenon. You could do dowels, all sorts of
Biscuits.
half laps and all that kind of stuff. But to get things kind of started, what I've done is I got 2 pieces of wood. Okay. What kind of wood is this, Ed?
Black limba.
Black limba. How much a board foot?
Depends on when you buy it.
We bought it about,
$13 to $15 a board foot.
when we bought it was like 5 or something.
$5.71, a smoking deal.
Beautiful wood. Now I don't like to do demonstrations and then throw the demonstrations away. So maybe as we talk, I'll actually make a little table using this. But what I'm going to do, is I did a little bit of stuff beforehand, but basically I cut these guys to shape. They're 90, flat surface. They're pretty pieces of wood. I don't know if you can just
I'll hold them up so
Yeah.
everybody can see.
Yeah.
Right
Okay, there you go.
So-
It's just a couple of pieces of black limba. Now I'm gonna walk over, the saw's already set up, and this is basically, I'm gonna make some noise and just go with it. Walk over to the saw's all set up, turn the saw on, run this guy here through partial away. This guy here, a little dangerous, but you get it set up with some guides and a mortising fixture or whatever, and you slice it on the table saw. That makes sense to everybody? I was gonna turn on the saw.
Yeah.
So basically what I just did is I cut that, okay? And then if you notice on the other one, I cut that, okay? So now I've got, my saw blade is exactly 1/8 of an inch thick. And what I did is I have a 1/8 of an inch spline. And literally it took me about this fast. So the spline fits in like that, okay? I'm gonna hand it to Kev so everybody can see. And then this guy here fits in, and don't show him the side that the markings on.
Right there.
Show him. show that side, okay?
Yep.
Now that, for a small table, is more than strong enough for whatever. Okay?
Yeah, and this is actually follow up from a question from last week, I think, from the first video, right, of if you don't have the domino or the, you know, the biscuit joiner, that's, you know, how much is that these days?
Biscuit joiners run anywhere, a good one, $200 some, but the Domino is about $1,000 basic. Then you gotta buy bits and dominoes and everything.
$300 more.
Yeah, $1,300 for
So-
a domino.
So because the question was like, if I don't have all this extremely expensive stuff, how do I, you know,
Okay,
from
well,
our video, how do you put this
That
together? And
is, now, you glue that up and it's gonna be as strong as it needs to be. Now, also, I can't just get away with showing technique, but I'm also gonna show a little bit of design. Okay, we've got these two rectangular pieces of wood. What's this? What do they call this in France?
La French curve.
Yeah, okay. And then what do we, this is a curve that we talked about before. Now, I don't know if you can see it, but now I'm gonna add some design,
Yep.
uh,
So
Stay
basically,
tuned, Michelle.
this is what, an 84 or in a 90 degree? Or
yeah, it's my
Radius.
90-inch
90-inch
radius.
radius. They're all radiuses.
Okay, so now I'm gonna just sit here and with these 90 degrees and all that kind of bore me to tears. And it's just so simple. Then we just come over here and get it like this.
Well, Dennis is drawing this. I might make a note about this. The spline joint doesn't have to be exactly in the middle of the board, because you just do, and then make sure, and then you just register so it could be like an eighth or a quarter of an inch down and a half an inch, but as long as the two are a quarter of an inch, it doesn't, so don't worry about, oh, I gotta set my table saw fence exactly in the middle. No, you just have to register the two boards the way you ran them through the table saw. That's all.
Yeah, I usually put an X or an R for registration,
Right.
and you just use this as a surface. Then I will, in fact, if you want, we'll glue this up, and at the end of the meeting, we'll bandsaw it out. Or I'll bandsaw part of it out, because I'll do the same to this guy here. And I'm just sitting here,
That's the French curve, right? Or no?
yeah, we'll do this guy. This is a constant radius arc. Okay. Then we take the curve of the French and we set it right here like this, lining up our little, I do most of my design and layout with the felt tip pen. And then we do it like this. I don't know how much you can see, but Kevin
Not
will,
much right now, but I'll hold it up.
Kevin will
I
show.
think he'll be able to see it.
Now, I'm also kind of stingy when it comes to wood, and if I were to do this, I would, we've got waste right here and right here. I would lay it out so I could cut two legs out of this and actually use this surface to glue two pieces together and not waste the wood. Okay, let me tap that. And Kevin, if you want to just show.
Yep. All right, so this right here is basically, once you cut that out, it'll be, oh yeah, let me hold it from a different angle. Like that, you can kind of see that actually, once it's cut out, is actually gonna look really, really nice. And
For a nice little simple table, and maybe in the next one we'll do some other. So you
And you only use two radiuses, or technically with the French curve, an 84 and a 90-inch radius, like an inside and an outside radius, and they're only technically one curve, one side, the other side. So it wasn't like he mixed and matched a whole bunch of but part of it's just what you think looks good.
Yeah.
If you want a little bit more of an arc, use a 78-inch radius. You know what I mean? Just play around with it. And we used to, at Lockheed, we always had a saying, paper's cheaper than cutting metal, okay? So take an eraser, you don't like it, make it a little bit, and then go, hey, that's what I want, boom, done. And then cut out your template and away you go.
Okay, this,
I think somebody has a question.
Question, sorry.
No problem.
So I'm noticing, you cut like, 4 inches down or whatever. Now, these cuts, is this like the last thing you do before you would connect it?
Understand the question.
You see,
S-
because
So,
you're gonna cut out that bottom part and the top.
correct.
So, do you cut that long, indentation first, or do you cut it
Okay,
after you decide your design? Do you know what I mean? Because now you've got that. I'll forget it. I can't.
no, okay, let's, little definitions here. Basically, this cutout is the kerf from the saw. The saw blade is exactly an 1/8 of an inch. So this is the kerf, okay?
Okay.
And then the spline right here fits in there. And this is also the kerf of the saw. Doesn't go all the way through. I do that first because
First, okay.
I'm doing that first so I can work with stuff that is easily to machine. That's the key for me, is to work on the saw. And as long as I got these at 90 degrees and flat and parallel, it comes off the saw very well. So basically, it's the first thing I do is I decide what the size, and then I cut the kerfs. I cut the spline holes, okay? And then I put it together. I have an idea of what I wanted to do, so then I come back and I draw it out, I glue it up, and then I'll actually cut them out on the bandsaw. And while you guys are talking a little bit, I'll go ahead and glue this up. And at the end of the Zoom meeting, or before the end, then I'll actually cut it out on the bandsaw and show you kind of the decorative effect that it can have with walnut and black limba. Joan! Joan showed up.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey!
Just stick these somewhere.
They'll just set them aside, yeah.
Well, I guess I can see myself, like, if it has to be exact on the curve, going
Right here's
too
fine.
far, and then I got a hole in the side, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so say that again?
So, let's say I only need a 3-inch curve, right?
Okay.
And what if I make a 4-inch?
Okay, well that it's kind of, you have to, it's forgiving, but you do have, on the table saw, you do have a little overcut that you have to deal with and have to think about. Yeah, that's maybe a downside of this method. You do have an extra cut. Now, if there's another, you could use a router to do
Okay.
it without kind of a, instead of,
They're called slot cutters.
Yeah, this type of a router bit like this, right?
yeah, and just, you could actually run, yeah, like that. Work just as good, probably a little smaller radius and all that. So,
Yeah, so the next thing, well, Ed has a bunch of, he did a little bit of preparation with some dominoes and the biscuit joiner, right?
Well, all three of the methods of joinery kind of intertwine with each other. Biscuit, domino, spline joints. They're all joints. And the spline joint's the cheapest to do.
yeah,
I've got,
this is simple.
go ahead and hand me the whole pad, the thing and or
Well,
something.
actually, before we get to this next thing, does anyone have any questions about the spline joint of any type? Anyone else there? No, okay. Yeah, then sorry
Okay.
to cut you off.
Last week, the discussion was a little bit about, well, why do you want to buy a domino machine and just use a biscuit joint? I brought a bunch of samples that I've had in my little pile here for years of different types of joints. Domino, domino, biscuit, domino, domino. These four are mortise and tenon joints. These are a biscuit joint. The biscuit joint is really, as far as I'm concerned, it's really good for just gluing up flat surfaces, and you just basically want register.
Let me hold it up so we can see this.
This happens to be a number 10 or a 0. These are the smallest ones. But it basically allows you to do glue ups with flat surfaces, and you can do it for a few other things. But let me show you what you can't do with it.
Oh wait, is that backwards?
Yeah, the two lines. There's lines on both sides. There you go.
Yes, I
Okay.
see.
Um,
Yeah, and he's got lines there, and when you're doing, you just line it
tabletops,
up
just
and-
big flat surfaces. Okay.
and-
Here's the disadvantage. Not really a lot of strength. The bigger ones are a little bit stronger, but they give you really good registry. Now, this is a compound mortise joint done on a domino machine. It's two different angles and a mortise and tenon joint. The advantage of it is perfect registration on both surfaces. It will not move when you glue it up.
This way like this? Like that?
There you go.
Yeah, so basically like that.
Two different angles. When you glue it up, it will not move. It's very strong. You couldn't do that with a biscuit joiner. You could register it with a biscuit joiner, but it would slide this way. It'll register this way, because the biscuit joiner will do an angle, but it would slide on you that way. So that's one advantage of a domino machine. Another advantage of a mortise and tenon joint is trying to do something that big. Okay? That's like a half inch, a 3/4 inch mortise and tenon joint on an angle. This is 8/4 stock walnut. Really great strength. Easy to glue up. I could take a clamp, put that together, boom, no sweat at all. Another thing you can do with a domino machine is these are bent lamination slats that I made for a bench seat. Every one of them was dominoed on the end, both ends. I put a domino in that end. The mating part of the bench seat was like a frame. I had 16 of these to glue together. You put them all in, they're perfectly registered, they don't move. The distance between each one of them is perfect. Can't do it with a biscuit joiner. Another application for the domino machine are miter joints. Again, you can do that with a biscuit machine, but it's going to slide on you. You could put 2 dominoes in there and register it, clamp it up. It's not going to move. You get perfect registration. So, all these have a unique application for the domino machine. The other thing about the machine, you take the machine to your workpiece. You don't bring the workpiece to the machine. The machine that these two were done on an FMT machine made by Lee, a frame mortar stand. You have to bring the workpiece to the machine. Try doing it with a 16-foot long board. Ain't gonna happen. The domino machine, you could bring it 5 miles down the road, okay?
Or under your pillow like you're saying.
And then here's another advantage of the domino machine for doing the same thing the biscuit machine will do. Go ahead and, okay?
So here,
Registration, no lateral movement, and when you put it together, it's
What-
rock solid. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. And these aren't even the bigger, these are number 6 dominoes, but, $200 versus 13, just ask yourself a question. What do I want to do? What can't I do? That's all.
yeah, and we're not trying to sell these things. We're just
No, we're
basically-
not salesmen for Festool.
yeah, just saying, hey, the question comes up is,
Yeah,
like,
it's just-
do you really need this stuff? And it's like,
Yeah, where do you want to go? Do you just want to glue flat boards together and make tables? Buy a biscuit joiner or do a spline joint. You can do a spline joint too. Same thing. Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, oh,
Oh, go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry to, keep asking questions, but when
That's
you're
why we're here.
gluing and you're putting those angled joints together,
yeah.
does the Domino have to go at an angle too?
The Domino machine has a plate on the front that will rotate up to 90 degrees and down, so you can do angles. The disadvantage with every biscuit joiner except a Porter cable, they've got the most unique fence system that it will do 90 degrees this way, and then it's kind of hard to describe. I can bring it next time. But then you can do the opposite direction. So you can do an obtuse angle and an acute angle. The beauty of that is depending on which surface you're working off of, you don't have to change the machine. You can register off of this surface, or you can register off of that surface by just adjusting the plate, but you don't adjust the cutter. So you get a perfect mating surface, like right there. So if I do have several biscuit joiners, and I only use the Porter cable biscuit joiner when I'm doing compound angles like the Coopered seat that go in 2 different directions. I don't have to change the setting. Once you change the setting, you've messed up your registration. That's the purpose of the whole thing. So Porter cable, they've been making this biscuit joiner for 20 years, 25 years. It's really great. So, but
Yeah. And one example is I made one of my first project was a coffee table, getting all the legs lined up properly. With anything other than the expensive tool, would have taken probably 10 times as long to do. With that thing, it was just knocking them out real quick, and everything set up ahead of time. You just hit it with the nice tool. And
The prototype 48-inch coffee table,
yep.
I made with dowels, because I didn't have I made a long time ago and didn't have the Domino machine, and the dowels worked, but the registration was off a little bit. But I was able to compensate using as I sculpted it in. But the problem with the dowels is the legs. You had to really be careful that they would twist like this. So just again, you in my world, you come up with a design, and then you figure out how to make it.
right.
Period. I was gonna kind of get on it a little bit. He always draws everything really well. I never draw plans, which just drives him crazy. So.
No.
Why don't we? Since Joan showed up, I thought you might be here, but
You forgot. to
why don't
remind
you
me to
introduce
traffic.
yourself,
Oh,
Joan?
hey, there's traffic on.
Yeah. If you don't mind, Kevin.
Yeah. Oh, this is
Hey,
Joan
folks.
Rivers. Go
Yes, Joan Rivers, and what are we adding for intro?
ahead.
Craftsman, designer, artist.
Yeah, check out his stuff on Instagram and Drome_Rivers_art. Yeah, and he does amazing work, and he's likes talking about this stuff too. So,
Tell me about what you've done for the last 3 months, just with the reclaimed wood with the DC and then where you're going now.
Last year, spent a long time getting a 2,000 square foot studio space together to make some high-end reclaimed wood furniture. So a lot of live edge tabletops, a ton of milling, and just custom fabricated pieces, mostly tables. I did. I got the saw stop and the domino. Used a lot of these techniques.
Well, to me, this is a big piece of wood, right? The stuff that Joan has been doing, I mean, it takes a little lift and 3 guys to move it. So he's been doing some big stuff.
Some 500-pound slabs.
Yeah, making some really cool
they're
stuff.
cut like over 4 inches thick, so when they dry, they're closer to 3, and then still have a lot of material to grind away to get them perfectly flat, and then find some wet spots and let them dry some more. So it's an adventure. Definitely not as it's a lot more time consuming than
buying
getting
wood.
dimensional. Yeah, a whole lot more.
So as time goes on, and and as questions arise, Joe, like I said earlier, is an artist who has changed his medium to wood, which is really a fascinating journey that, and I've watched him do that in the last 6 years. So again, just glad you made it. He's actually we got to figure out how to make a
The next gen rocker.
next gen rocker. He got a commission for a nice rocker, so we got to figure out how to do it. After this, we're going to work on it. So, okay, enough of that. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kevin, for humoring us.
Oh, no problem at all. I'm glad you showed up. Just wondering, anyone have, we'll go on to a couple more topics, but since we're talked about this stuff already, does anybody have a question, or what are you guys working on? And I think we have some newer people we haven't talked to, like Tom. Do you have any questions? How you doing? Or?
Pretty good. Not any questions just yet. I think I'm in the process of, I'm kind of here for two reasons. One, I have a company I co-founded that we design acoustic panels and furniture for recording studios
Cool.
and stuff like that. And we're kind of looking around for different partners to make some of the stuff locally. In the past, we've had it made down south in Mexico, and we would rather have it made locally now. So that's all this kind of a.
Where you
What's
at?
it? I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh.
I'm over in Van Nuys.
Yeah, we're
And
we're in Rancho Cucamonga right now is where we're sitting at. So I mean.
yeah, I saw that on there. I was like, well, that's interesting. Yeah, and I saw that there's kind of a
I'm in Los
network.
Angeles.
Yeah, no, Jones in Los Angeles as well.
Yeah.
Oh, cool! Right on.
Yeah, Joe.
I just checked out your Instagram, Joe. I'm gonna shoot you a follow.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Jones kind of plugged into the studios. Your dad's an incredible guitar player, and so yeah, a lot of resources.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. My background is I worked at a company that built recording studios for years, and sold a lot of audio equipment and stuff, and a lot of the furniture brands that we carried there. I think the styles are like either super futuristic, like plasticky looking stuff, or stuff that kind of looks out of the 90s. And I've always really been attracted to the woodsmanship and the like brass accents of like mid-century stuff, and there really aren't any companies out there that are doing that. So it's kind of what we started designing.
That's right where we're at.
Yeah, and Tom, I'll this is Kevin. I'll talk to you later, or we'll different forum, and because that's kind of one of the goals is to basically give all these woodworkers here that are, some of them are excellent woodworkers looking for work. Maybe
Fantastic.
connect you and.
Yeah.
But this is this is our third session here, and we're just kind of getting things going here, and that's kind of one of the ideas. Is
Yeah, and I have to bring up, I always brag on my friend. Joan actually went to Art Center as an automobile designer,
Sure, I started Art Center in College
cool.
of Design in the Transportation Design Department.
and he wised up really quick.
Halfway through.
Halfway through, yeah.
Yeah.
So he, like I say, he has all the credentials, but more importantly, he knows how, he thinks differently, which is good.
Cool. Well, yeah, the other reason I'm here is I before I moved to Los Angeles, I'm from Ohio originally, and I used to do some woodworking stuff. In fact, my background was in carpentry, but more in rough framing and stuff. I've been, my girlfriend has been gracious enough to lend me the use of her garage to start putting together a workshop space. So one question I did have is I'm kind of at a point where I know I want to buy a router and either like a track saw or a table saw, and I didn't know if you had any advice on what would be a good small furniture making shop setup.
I think
Yeah.
I'm new at this, so my first piece of advice is figure out what project you want to make first, and then get what you need to make that. And that's Ed, I think, is a better also good.
What router would you use, Ed?
I only have 100 of them, and I'm not kidding.
What would
I
you
don't
say your
change
top
bits.
25 of them
I don't
are?
change bits, I just have routers. I hate setup. I don't know what your intentions are, how to use it. There's different sizes, trim routers. Milwaukee is my router of choice. They make basically two, 1 3/4 horse and a 2 1/4 variable speed horse. The thing I like about them is you can pick them up with one hand, they got a strap on the side. I do a lot of stuff where I'm holding the work. All the other routers on the market have two handles, you're trying to muscle it, hold your work, clamp it down. Anyway, eBay,
Are you able to put them in?
go on eBay, look, oh, I'm sorry.
Say
I
that
was
again?
gonna ask if those ones are able to be mounted in a table if you want to do like an edge or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have one handy, but I've got two portable router tables that I use.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
And we just use in Milwaukee, they're fantastic, ergonomics. He's got 100, I've got 16, so that'll show you kind of the.
Yeah. But for a first tool to buy, a router is definitely, I think, because that's kind of the question, right?
well, actually, I'd buy
Yeah,
two,
yeah.
if I were
I
gonna
know
buy
what
one
you're
router,
talking
I'd buy
about.
two.
Kind of
I'd buy one of these and one of these.
Yeah, he's-
This is a game changer.
What's
Now,
that?
That's a trim router, but you don't have to buy the cordless one if you don't want to invest in. I just picked up a brand new Bosch trim router just like this, 1/4-inch collet on eBay for $63, free shipping. Okay?
Oh, man.
So if you go on eBay and snoop around at routers, put in brands or whatever, you gotta know what you're looking at. Some of them look like they were run over by a truck. Some people go, I used it on one project and they're blowing it out like 60–70% off. You can't go wrong. Check the reviews though. If you've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
sold, don't buy one from somebody that has never sold one. It's a scam. So be careful, be careful. Anyway, that combination will, 1/2-inch collet, 1/4-inch collet, you can do a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
What would you say for a first saw?
What's that?
first
First saw.
saw.
My first saw?
Well,
Or
for him,
what you would
like this,
recommend.
yeah, for-
You want a
Yeah,
table
I was
saw,
having-
you want a track saw, you want a track,
Table saw, let's tape,
a
what,
table saw?
Well, see, that's what I'm between. I'm wondering if I should, for the name or for the sake of space, if I should get a table saw or if I could get by with a track saw instead.
what kind of woodworking do you think you're gonna be doing?
Yeah, first
Probably
project.
like pretty basic furniture. Like I think my first commission is the payment for using the workshop, which is building my girlfriend a kitchen island.
You're gonna be using
that'll probably be
plywood?
the first project.
You're gonna be using plywood?
I'm probably going to be using veneered plywood, and then I'm going to try to make a butcher block of some kind, probably with walnut.
And how much space you working with?
It's about 12 by 18 feet, something like that. It's a pretty small space.
Do you have 220 or 120 power?
It's 120.
I would seriously consider a track saw and build some sawhorses in a track saw.
Yeah, I think you could get by with just the track saw, especially with the
Yeah.
space.
And and again, we lean, or I would lean towards the Festool. Tell us about your experience with the.
It was a Triton. So I tried the Triton Track Saw, which is significantly cheaper than the Festool Track Saw. But to be fair, I was working with
Killer lumber.
literally killer lumber. So the naturally salvaged lumber, dried naturally, some of it is really dense, and not every species of wood has that even grain density. So to be short, the lumber I was using, it killed the Triton Track Saw. It started to burn out.
Within a week.
It was no, it made it a good. It was over a month.
So,
But this was an industrial space, so like every day, we're like grinding that thing through,
Yeah.
freshly dried lumber, and
Then you bought a.
Then we bought the Festool, and the biggest Festool was is it 55?
75.
75, yeah, the 75. Yeah, that one gets the job done. Just got to keep the blade sharp.
Well, let's do a quick vote here, because I have Joaquin and some other people here that are woodworking for a while. Who would vote for a table saw? Who would vote for a track saw for that?
Are we voting too?
Yeah, you're voting too.
I just have to ask you one more
Yeah,
question.
okay, go ahead.
How thick of wood do you plan on cutting with your projects?
What is it? What was the first part?
How thick of material are you gonna cut with your projects?
Probably about 3/4 inch will be the
Two,
average,
2
I'd
inches
say.
thick?
Three-quarter.
Three quarters.
Oh, 3/4.
There's not much difference though with if you get the full size track saw, right? You got a little under 3 inches.
2.5.
Well, no, the reason I ask is if you only have 110 power and you buy a small table saw and you're trying to run 2-inch thick oak through it, you're gonna burn out the motor or it's gonna stall. Take your choice. It's gonna burn. They're not made to do that. The track saw though, the big Festool track saw will go about 2 1/4 inches thick. And they make clamps for the track where you can, feel secure that it's not gonna move.
Yeah.
And you could literally rip 2-inch oak or 1 3/4 oak with that track saw and not have a problem with it. Now, can you do dado cuts with it? No. So
Yeah, that was the only
you
thing
have,
I was-
again, we come back to this original question. Where do you want to go with this? What do you want to do with it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And Jerome has a.
Yeah.
So you don't need the dado cuts if you've got 100 routers.
Yeah.
Well, true. There's other ways around.
Yeah,
And if
and
you have-
now Joaquin has some input there. Go ahead.
Right.
I think you're
Oh,
muted though.
No,
so-
I was agreeing with, if you have a bunch of routers, I guess you don't.
Yeah,
do
but
it.
I got to add on that track saw, you need both of them. I mean, what the advantage is.
I just you can do dado cuts on a track saw. I realize that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's saying you need both of them, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so.
I know. You just move the fence over. Is that correct? And then raise the blade at whatever height you want for the dado cut. So, is that correct?
I wasn't talking about that. I was gonna say something about the track saw.
Oh, yeah.
He was asking about the track saw. I was gonna give you my experience with it.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, in building cabinets for kitchens and such, well, you got a big old sheet of 4x8 plywood out there, and running that thing through your table saw, sometimes you don't get that accurate cut. So you cut it up into pieces, or you can cut them exactly what you want them
Yeah.
cut at with that track saw. Or you can cut them down to size and then use them on your table saw.
I was gonna
It's,
point that out before.
I got
we
the
vote.
DeWalt track saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Great
completely.
advantage. I love it.
We can all agree here that the name of the game is to get all of the tools eventually.
Yeah.
But
First,
but I'm probably gonna have to start with one or the other, I think.
If I could just throw a little insight, when I first started, if you go back and look at 1975 issues of Fine Woodworking magazine, this topic of what saws do I get, 90% said that you had to have a table saw, period. And I remember reading one article back in the day about this one guy, and he says, you don't really need a table saw. You can get by just fine with a bandsaw. And I said, well, that's crazy. I mean, nobody believed him. But now, looking back on what I do, again, I have I've limited what I do. I do cut plywood on occasion. I do cut long boards. If I started out today, like, doing a little bit of cabinets, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, I swear I'd buy a track saw and the most expensive bandsaw I could buy with a 1-inch carbide blade and use that as my table saw. Again, just food for thought. And routers and the track saw.
Sander.
And yeah.
Oval sander.
Yeah, but that's where I would start is, I would seriously consider buying a good large throat bandsaw because I do 90% of my work with the big bandsaw and the little guy. So, my 2 cents.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
Well,
my 2 cents.
Yeah, good.
I disagree 100%. Okay? I would, if somebody said, I'm gonna take your table saw to your shop, I'd shoot him right between the eyes, okay?
Yeah.
I've got a Delta Unisaw that's 25 years old and the total run out on the blade is 2/1000ths of an inch.
Yeah.
I've got a digital readout that goes out to 1/1000th of an inch. I can cut dado joints, I don't care what you tell me to cut it, 0.926, and I'll give you a dado
Yeah.
joint that's exactly 926. So it all depends on your personal feeling about all this stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to do dog houses and picnic tables,
No, we're not
You know,
talking about.
whatever. I do very precision work, and everything is done in thousandths of an inch, and when I get done, the joints fit together perfectly. No gaps. They're perfect.
But-
So it all depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, so I don't think we need a vote. There's some good information for you, Tom.
Yeah.
That's
There
why
is no right answer.
I hope we answered the question, right? You know.
Yeah,
So-
you did.
we have interesting discussions at lunch and breakfast.
I bet.
All right.
It's my wife's
Oh yeah, I was gonna say
laptop, but my
Melissa.
name
No,
is
you.
Jonathan. I'm the one that asked about the Domino tool last time. So I appreciate you guys covering the
Oh,
split
okay.
joint. Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Easy to slap some stuff together for as a demonstration to see. I mean,
Now, I just remembered, I do own 2 highly precision table saws. Okay, but they sit back there and I use them rarely.
yeah. And a follow up to that. I think
Not in
our
the first half.
I think our part 2 to our reclaimed wood table is probably going to be pushed back a week or two because there's unless you think you'll be done with that in a week or.
I'll be done with it when I decide to. I mean, it's done in my mind.
Okay. But we'll have to probably schedule it for 2 weeks from now or something.
No, it's gonna be February.
Okay, yeah, then maybe, because I think go ahead, so, sorry.
I have a question, with the table saw, doesn't most of the precision come from the fence? You have to have a good fence? I
Yes.
see a lot of table saws out there, and they don't do a very good job.
Okay, the fence on my table saw is,
Yeah, let him-
oh, I'm sorry, go
let him
ahead.
finish.
And also how the fence is adjusted.
And
Yeah,
how the fence is
It's gotta
adjusted.
be adjustable, but a lot of the fences are cheap, they're very, how would you say, narrow, so you can't, every time you clamp it down, it doesn't come back to that 90 degrees or 0
Yeah,
degree
not
setting.
touching those fences.
Because it's got play in it. Those are the cheaper ones.
Yeah.
Unless you got something like a, what do they call it, Bessemeyer?
Yeah.
Bessemeyer is the one that I have. That's very accurate. But I thought that most of your accuracy comes from the fence.
Yes.
And the miter gauge
Yeah.
for 90s and stuff.
Yeah, the fence that I'm trying to think of the one that I have on there now, but it's adjustable. And a lot of people adjust their fence on the back side of the blade a couple of thousandths outboard, not inboard. You don't want,
Right.
mine is perfectly parallel. And I get the best cut with it, and we won't get into how I adjust the fence, but it's within the total run out on my fence is a thousandth of an inch with a precision dial indicator.
Right. That's about what I have. And that's adjusting the trunnion, everything.
Oh, yeah.
I have a unisaw also, but it's from 1940s
Wow,
Cool.
or 50s.
mine's 1985.
Yeah, you win.
Yeah, no, mine is real old.
No, you got the good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the good one, you're right.
Yeah. No, the other thing about table saws, put a cheap blade on, you get crappy cuts. Buy a good blade. We won't get into talking about blades, but
Not this time.
Yeah.
Not this time.
not tonight. But that's another part of the equation. So,
Yeah, any other questions for, Les, you're piped in there with some good information. Do you have any comments or questions or anything like that, or?
No, I'm really impressed and fascinated by the discussions that you're having, and want to continue with that. It's very good.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Actually, I think the reason, Kevin mentioned it, and I said, well, like I say, Ed, we've been good friends, even though we have different workflows since high school, kind of post-army, post-military.
yeah.
And we go to breakfast once a week or thereabouts, and we'll sit there and we'll talk about this stuff. I tell my wife she can come with us, but she would be bored to tears in moments. But this is what we do. We talk about everything, our philosophies of making, cutting wood and making things, and And it's just a wonderful experience to have had Ed all these years. Again, his precision has made me a better woodworker. You know, I strive to work as precisely as Ed does, and I think I've had a little bit of influence on him in loosening up a little bit. If you look at Ed's recent furniture, it's incredible. So,
Well, thank you.
on that, yeah.
It is.
It's really a personal thing. That's all it is. It's what's inside you, your passion, or again, where you want to go with this. If you really are a perfectionist, well then, the way I look at it is I go out in the shop and I say to myself, what do I want to make? I can make anything. I can do a triple compound mortise and tenon joint because I have the equipment. Now, you might say, well, I'd like to do a triple mortise compound joint, but I don't have the equipment to do it, so I can't do it. So you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do? You want to do it or you don't want to do it? Take your choice. It's just a personal thing. And our objective here is to shed many, many hours of experience and mistakes that we've made. And hopefully we help you avoid going out and buying a $99 table saw for your shop. And then you go, oh man, that was a waste of money. I'm on my 4th generation of tools. And a lot of them have been mistakes because I thought A was going to work, and then I had to buy B, and then I had to buy C to get to where I wanted to be. So the whole idea is to help you guys make informed decisions. That's all.
Yeah.
It's
And-
not to do any more than that.
Yeah, and kind of like I say on the website, is my eventual plan is to give anyone here that's more experienced with this stuff a platform to also have similar discussions on what you want to as well, not just the meeting here with us, but more often, you know. And I'm just getting started, getting people and getting people signing up and stuff. But the plan is to grow this and give more people the opportunity to share their information too. And that way you just don't have to hear Ed and Dennis talk nonstop. There's other options too.
We could do that.
Which then you'll have the opportunity to do that for a while too. But so Dennis is going to make some noise. To
Yeah,
kind
well,
of-
Demo
I was
time.
looking for my good safety glasses, but can't find them.
All right.
Okay, just
Japanese joinery.
okay. If you weren't here,
Hold on 1 second. He's going to cut this, and then we'll get back to your question.
if you weren't here earlier, we glued this up with the spline joint, and now I'm just gonna cut it real quick here. Oh, I gotta plug it in.
Should I grab a camera?
Joe, would you plug this into the vacuum on the front?
Plug it in where?
Oh, right here, I'm sorry. Will it fit?
It's
There you go. Wasn't quite, got it?
hot.
Do it.
Okay, so, yep. So this is basically the form that he just drew real quick over there, and, basically cut it out, and then you just finish it from here, right, or whatever you want.
Yeah. Again, I just cut it so I can still use it. I'll put another leg on it, and then we'll do a couple of things that go across, make a little table base for it. Quick and dirty. but it'll be beautiful.
Yep. Steve, you had something to say?
Okay, I wanted to know if anybody's into the Japanese form of joinery. They lock together. You really don't need glues or anything. Like for slabs, like you are using. You use anything like that for joinery?
I don't do that. I don't think we do that, but I do have a friend who is really good at kumiko and other Japanese or Oriental versions. And again, now that you brought it up, we'll put that on the list of maybe a topic.
Yep.
Fascinated by it. There's a guy. He's an artist. His name is Fred Rose. If you Google Fred Rose, it'll pop right up. He does variations of the Japanese joinery. Fascinating guy. Just one portion of what he does, but I think he would be an interesting place to go to look at some of this different precision woodworking and art. So,
Yep.
I was looking at George Nakashima. He has a lot of beautiful stuff, and a couple things I really like his Knoid chair. That I don't know if you're familiar with.
oh, very, very much so. Yeah, I've been. Yeah, I know Mira Nakashima. His daughter, George, was a big influence on me to start. Very familiar with him.
All right, well, go ahead. One last question here, or actually two last questions. We'll go with that.
I have a question. Speaking about doing Japanese joints, there's so many different Japanese saws out there. Pull saws, flush cut saws. Do you have any advice? It's probably the one saw I don't really have. I was looking to purchase a flush cut pull saw. What would you recommend? There's different types and the names are very similar, but I don't really understand the difference between them.
Here, there. Any saw that looks like that, that is a rip and a cross cut. Each side,
Right.
one side's a rip, one side's a cross cut. It'll cut flush. The difference between Japanese and Americans is the Japanese saw is cut on the pole, and our saw is cut on the push. They're American, or I'm going to call it English. I use both. Whatever I need. I love this guy here. He's I don't remember who makes that, Ed? Veritas or
Lee Nielsen?
Lee Nielsen. I'd recommend, this is what I prefer to cut dovetails, hand cut dovetails. I use this guy for generally everything else.
Right, it's the pull saws that I'm looking at.
Yeah, pull, Japanese.
Right.
Love it. I mean,
Yeah,
There's
so
different
the
names,
different
and
brands is like
I don't
in-
know whether there are different brands or different
Cezanne
types.
is what's that one?
Pretty much all the same, right? I mean, there's no.
yeah, they're pretty standardized,
You're
and
not
they're
gonna find that out here.
yeah, but
It's
this,
one-
I'd tell you what the brand is, but I can't read it.
Some have 6-inch blades, others are
Japanese.
9, others are 12, different
Yeah,
length
some are for
blades.
dovetails, some are for flush cutting. Like that one he's got there is a flush cut because it has no set in the
Yeah.
teeth. But I have one that's shaped just like that has a set in the teeth.
Yeah, this has a little
So
set.
it's not a flush.
Okay, our time's pretty much almost.
Set? Irwin makes one but it does have a set,
Yeah.
and it's good for getting in. If you were to trim some molding and you wanted to get underneath, you can go flush with the saw because the blade is offset from the handle. But that's not really the type of saw I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one that you have there, that you just held up. Exactly. Rip and crosscut. But again,
The
so
zucchini.
it doesn't seem as though the manufacturer or the type matters.
No, most of them are actually bought from the same exporters overseas, and they're branded here. And as long as it's a good steel one, I mean, one with good reviews and stuff that'll be the best thing. But we're pretty much wrapping things up. We could talk more about saws next time, or one of the next times, but I think we had one more question over here, or with not Melissa, it's
Well, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to thank everybody. I didn't know if I'd fit in this group, but I think I might. I somehow it popped up on my Facebook, and I joined the last one and watched Dennis's video. But as I looked into your guys' websites, and I even saw some of Joe's tables and Dennis, the guitars you made, I thought, wow, I don't want to take this for granted. You guys do really good work, and I appreciate you guys putting this together.
Oh, thanks.
Especially at this point for beginners like me. But this comment was more for Dennis. I saw you taught at some Maloof Art Center, and I was like, wow, this is kind of the real deal here. Could you tell me about that? And
Actually,
I've just been really inspired at just looking at your website alone.
I am a woodworking historian. I've studied woodworking. I've been back. My wife and I have traveled extensively, pursuing this woodworking craft.